Hey guys, so today I wanted to have a little chit chat about quiet time or independent time, silent time, drop everything and read time, whatever it is that you call it in your home. Basically the time that you set aside for your kids to rest, play independently, and have a little bit of downtime. So in our house, we call it quiet time, and for us, it lasts 1 hour. So I'm going to tell you what works for us in our home and kind of the way that I've gone about this and the way we've done things. And I want you guys to have a discussion in the comments and leave some ideas, maybe for moms who are wanting to start this in their home, of the way that you do things in your home, because what works for me might not work for you. Nothing really, there's really no exact way to do this, so I think it would be a good opportunity to discuss some new ideas and to get some insight from other moms. So a little disclaimer before we really kick it off here, I just want you guys to know that this is how I've done things for a very long time. I've started quiet time when my daughter was 2 and I had a newborn in the house, so that was 8 years ago. So we've been doing this for a really long time, and of course, I know you guys already know this, but just in case, I never want to give an idea of how we do things and to have it come off like I'm giving advice, because I think when that is kind of like the way that it's coming off, then that leaves room for somebody to feel insecure about the way that they're doing things at home. That was like a roundabout way of saying that you're good. However you're running your house, however you're doing things in your home, you're doing great. You're doing a good job. I think everybody has their own unique family culture and their own family needs. So this is just the way that things go in my home. You're not required to do quiet time. You're not required to force your kids to read independently for a long length of time. This is just the way that things go in my home. And if you are interested in some other ideas, if this is a topic that interests you, read the comments below and see what other people do and kind of how other families create that quiet, restful space in their home. Okay, so let's get started. So first off, what exactly is quiet time? For me in my house, that is 1 hour that I give my kids the opportunity to play independently and to kind of rest their minds, to play creatively. It is the first time each day that they really have the chance to just be alone and play, because we homeschool. From the minute they wake up, we're kind of on a strict routine. If I let them play too much in the morning before we start school, I can't really reel them back in to do some work. So they wake up, they hit their chores immediately, and then we kind of roll right into school. So we do quiet time every day from 1 to 2. Pretty much. Sometimes it's 12:30 to 1:30, sometimes it's 1:30 to 2:30, but that's my hope, is that we kind of make it between 1 and 2. It seems to be about the time each day that we're all ready to hit one of those little low notes of the day. And it's the first opportunity that my kids have to play in their room after they wake up. I purposely keep their bedroom doors shut while we're doing school so that they don't get at their toys and kind of lose interest in what we're doing in school. That also builds anticipation for them to want to play independently for an hour, because they haven't been around their toys and they haven't had access to a lot of that stuff. So it's a very healthy balance for them to kind of be kept away from that stuff, but then to be given opportunity to play with those things. So I read an article years ago that talked about having a good balance between high notes and low notes each day. And as a homeschooler, and of course, quiet time, independent playtime, that works across the board, whether you homeschool or not. But for my family, since we homeschool, I wasn't sure how many high notes and low notes we really had each day, because we didn't necessarily have a recess and our home was generally pretty calm, I assumed. But as I kind of thought about it, I realized that we didn't really have a good balance between high notes and low notes. And the reason for that is because, you know, because we homeschool and they're just taking instruction from me, for me there wasn't a lot of loud activity or anything like that happening. But when I really started to think about it, for my kids, they are getting this one-on-one instruction consistently all day. And so because I know math and I know reading and I know these concepts that I'm teaching them, it seemed like we had a pretty chill morning and a pretty chill early afternoon. But when I really started to think about it, from my kids' perspective, they are just getting hit with new information all day long, and they have me right in their face. There's not a lot of room for them to kind of slip off and even daydream, because I'm right there with them all day long. So I kind of started to break that up in our school day. That's why I added quiet time as part of our school day instead of after we finished school completely. And we added a little bit of outdoor playtime in the morning, but then in the early afternoon, as soon as we're done eating lunch, I love giving them the opportunity to kind of, at that point, they're full, they are content, and it's a really great time to kind of break off from one another. They usually, when we have lunch, they play with each other for about 30 minutes after they're done eating, and lunch is very loud. They're very loud at the table. I don't make them be quiet during lunch, and then they continue to play with each other. Sometimes they're outside, sometimes they're inside, but their little spirits are just filled. They have had a lot of good time together. They've had a lot of time, a lot of good educational time with me instructing them, and just some good time together as a family doing morning basket. And at that point, it's a really healthy time for them to break off and play independently. One of the things that I really try to do with them is not to say it's time to rest or it's time to go play by yourself. Those aren't phrases, especially like my 4-year-old, those aren't phrases that are very fun or exciting, or oftentimes that's just straight up scary when they're 3 and 4 years old. I don't want to rest. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to possibly fall asleep. I'm sure that's what's going on in their heads. So the way that I kind of present it for them is with excitement, like, oh, well, why don't you put that aside for your quiet time? Or this is really good for you. Are you excited for your quiet time? Or, oh, buddy, maybe that's a toy that you can play with during your quiet time. You'll get to play with that during your quiet time. Like, you'll get to, and it's good for them. And less of that, you need to do quiet time, you need to rest, we need to rest, and especially I need you to rest, because if we start making the quiet time about us, then even as parents, we are setting ourselves up for failure, in the sense that the second that they are disobedient and walk out of that room when they're not supposed to, we're already tensed up because this was my time to rest. So while it does benefit you as the parent, it really is about giving them the opportunity to have that creative space, to not have you in their face, and to just play independently and rest. So I get asked a lot when I do a day in the life, or even just when I share on my Insta stories, what my kids do during their quiet time, how I keep them quiet and things like that. They don't stay quiet the whole time. I do check in on them every 10 or 15 minutes, just encourage them, you're doing a good job, you have this much time left. If they're kind of stuck and they don't have an idea of what they want to do, I can say, well, why don't we get this toy? Why don't we do that? Do you want a different book? What I ask them to do is pick a book, a puzzle, and a toy. So they all have toys in their rooms. Like, the boys have superheroes and Hot Wheels. My daughter has Calico Critters. That's kind of what she's been playing with right now. She has her American Girl dolls. These are all creative, not electronic, loud, noisy, battery operated toys, just opportunity for them to play. But I ask them to start with a book. They bring the book in their room and they'll read for a little while. Sometimes they'll read for the whole hour, but most often they'll read for 10 or 15 minutes and then trail off and either play with the puzzle or mag formers or any sort of like STEM educational toy, or just one of their toys in the room that they've been wanting to get at. My daughter loves to do crafts. The boys have been bringing a lot of markers and crayons and just blank pages into their room during this time. So it really is just free play, but nothing electronic, nothing loud, and it always starts with a book. So that's what my kids are doing during quiet time. The next question would be, what do I do during quiet time? I do catch up on my housework a little bit. I do try to plan the baby's nap as of late to be during quiet time, but sometimes I just spend that time playing independently with her. With homeschooling, I don't have a lot of one-on-one time with her, so that's important for the both of us to have that time together. I really try to not spend the whole hour doing housework. I try to give myself the opportunity to rest as well, or I'll read, or I will do my Bible study if I didn't have time to do it that morning. Very rarely, but it does happen, I will fit my workout in during that hour. I've been doing a workout program that runs 6 days a week, so I don't 6 mornings a week wake up on time to get that done, so I can squeeze that in if I need to. Sometimes I just scroll Facebook and don't think about homeschooling or housework for a good solid hour. It's always different, but one of the most important things is that during that time, you kind of take the chance to take a breath as well. I have found that as long as I know that that quiet time is coming during the day, then my attitude stays a lot better in the mornings, that my spirits stay a little higher, because I know that I have an opportunity for a little bit of rest coming up, and then that will give me some energy, especially when my husband worked 14-hour days. I really needed that break in the middle of the day. I don't need it as much anymore, but I still really look forward to that time in the early afternoon just to take a deep breath, and that gives me a lot more energy to spend on the kids in the morning as well as in the early afternoon, where I found that I used to start to struggle in the early afternoon with just like being tired or being worn out or not really wanting to like continue doing the crafting, parenting, reading, you know, chipper, housekeeper kind of a thing anymore. I now find myself with a renewed sense of energy for the afternoon. So that's been great as well. So I started doing quiet time with my kids all of my kids at about 2 years old. That's about when they aged out of taking naps. Because of quiet time, every so often they do fall asleep because they're just given that opportunity to really recognize how tired they are. So they don't just keep going all day, every day. Maybe happens once a week with one kid. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. But the way that I started it is I started with 10 minutes. And at that point, when they're very young, you really have to continue to check in on them. Sometimes it's just quiet, having the house quiet, but you're sitting on the same rug as them, just kind of teaching them what it means to rest, what it means to play quietly. You can't really leave them alone in a room when they're 2 years old, but start with 10 minutes. Positive encouragement, reinforcement all the way through. As they're old enough to play independently with blocks or something like that in their room, increase the time as you increase your check-ins. So maybe start with 15 minutes, but check on them every 5 minutes. When you add it up to 20 minutes, check on them every 5 minutes. Give them an idea of how much longer they have, because the unknown can seem like they have hours and then they don't want to stay in their room. They don't want to continue to play quietly. Make sure that they've had a little bit of snack beforehand or use the potty and don't want to come out 72 times, and give them something to look forward to afterwards. So in our family, we immediately go from quiet time to read aloud time together, which is something that they love. So they know that as soon as quiet time's over, they have something to look forward to. And then last but not least, if my kids are not having a good day with it, if they're really not doing well staying in their room, or they're just kind of not interested in doing quiet time, one of the things that I will do, and it kind of like is in layers, levels, tiers of quiet time, is they just start out being in their room, lights are on, windows are open. If they keep coming out, then I'll just close their blinds or dim their lights. Sometimes that will help promote a restful environment. If they're still coming out, then I ask them to just take their book and their toys and stay in their bed instead of playing on the floor. These are all just, it's not necessarily punishment, although I'm sure they see it as that, but this is just ways to encourage and promote a restful atmosphere if they're really struggling to rest, because I really think it's important for them to have the opportunity to rest even if they don't want it or think they need it. So that's how we do quiet time in our house. I think that was a lot longer than I anticipated, so I'm sorry if you are super bored out of your mind. Let me know in the comments, like I said, what you guys do in your family. Do you have a rest time? Do you have a reading time? What is the time of day, if you have one, that you prefer to do any sort of quiet time? And I will see you guys soon.